What we aim to do here is look at a historical budget analysis for the Louisville Orchestra for the past 5 seasons. Starting with income, we can see the various line items running down the left side of the page, and the annual results for the past 5 seasons running from left to right across the top. I've put 2008 in yellow for reasons that will become apparent, and last season in blue as a reference. We want to start first at looking at total ticket sales throughout the last 5 seasons. This category encompasses both subscription tickets and single ticket sales. So one can see that 5 years ago we reached a level of approximately $1.2 million. The next season, $1.4 million in ticket sales, a peak in 2008 at $1.6 million, and a gradual leveling off starting in 2009 back down to $1.2 million, and last year roughly $1.1 million. As we've said, what this demonstrates is that we've had sort of an arc in our ticket sales, and there are good reasons for that, which we'll discuss. I've put 2008 in yellow for the express point of remembering that that was the peak at $1.6 million in total ticket sales. We now turn our attention to item number 2, which is total contributed income over the past number of years. We simply illustrate that in 2009 and 2010, at the height of the recession, we were actually achieving all-time record numbers for total contributed income. Category 3 shows us our total income through the last 5 years. It's worth noting that the average of these years is $6.2 million. At the same time, these figures do include some multi-year pledges to our capital campaign, which by accounting standards have to be shown in the year in which they are received. Turning our attention now to the expense side of the ledger, we can again see the categories running down the left side and our annual results from year to year running left to right. What you'll notice at the top is our orchestra musicians. We consider the orchestra musicians part of the fixed costs of our operating model, as our 71 musicians are all on salary. This next slide is rather illuminating. In item number 4, what we see are variable concert costs. Variable concert costs would include things like our guest soloists, concert production, sound, lighting, music rental, hall rental, etc. Expenses that change based on the number of programs and locations that we produce our events. What we can see in the yellow year at the peak of our ticket sales at $1.6 million is a variable concert cost of $1.7 million. And when we look at our ticket sales in last season at $1.1 million, we see a corresponding relationship between the variable concert costs. What I find interesting in this chart is the fact that we can see the difference in ticket sales from fiscal year 2008 to 2010, a drop of roughly $500,000 to $600,000, but we see that same number reflected in the variable concert production costs. This means to me that it may be the case that if you spend more money on your soloist, you can sell more tickets. It is important to know that between 2008 and 2009, at the start of the recession, we lost a number of major sponsors for various concert series. The impact of that was the cancellation of our orchestra series at the Zoo, which partially accounts for the drop in our total ticket revenue from year to year. Item number 5 shows our total expenses throughout the years, averaging roughly at $7 million or more. The next item shows the impact of our income versus expenses through the years, unfortunately reflecting deficits in every one of the last 5 seasons. In fact, if we look back to a total of 10 years, we have had a deficit in an operational standpoint for each of the last 10 seasons. A fair question to ask, therefore, would be how can the orchestra have annual deficits year after year and still operate? The answer lies in point number 7. Item 7 shows us the total non-recurring items or one-time activity which has helped to mask the fact that we've been running deficits for so many years. The average bailouts and bequests that we've been spending from 2006 to 2009 total more than $1 million a year just to keep our concerts going. Is this evil or bad on the surface of it? Not really. We could look at the positive side and say that we've gotten 4.5 more years out of this funding source, but in the long term it's a very undisciplined way to run a business. Now, the thing that's probably most troubling is the fact that we don't control the inflow of items in category number 7. These are one-time activities, bailouts, bequests, gifts of the state that come in largely without the orchestra's control. And you can see in 2010, regrettably, suddenly the spigot had been turned off, and we only had $1,300 in one-time activity, thus exposing the high-risk nature of our business strategy. So this leads us to our current plan. The fundamental core of our plan is to commit to live within our means, just the way a family or any business has to. Number two, we have to be honest about the annual levels of cash inflows upon which we can depend. This means eliminating the dependence on one-time bailouts or bequests, and it also means we will mitigate the impact of multi-year pledges of support by being disciplined to be honest about how much cash we can reasonably expect in any given year. That cash basis then becomes a budget ceiling for our costs. The benefit, not just to this community, but to all the employees of the organization, is that we will finally have the option to put bequest funding and one-time activity into our endowment fund, thus building the capacity long-term for the organization to sustain itself, and essentially building a safety cushion for a rainy day. The fundamental hallmark of our plan is the dedication to live within a budget ceiling of $5.75 million. Again, we know historically that's a figure that we've been able to raise. We feel that this plan is disciplined, responsible, appropriate, yet challenging. We will still, of course, need the community's support, and this is the fundamental basis of our reorganization plan. We would love to welcome your support to allow the concerts to continue, and you may donate to the Louisville Orchestra by visiting our website at www.louisvilleorchestra.org. Simply click on the donate button. Thanks again very much for your attention to this video, and thank you for your long-standing support of the Louisville Orchestra.